started. And we're going to get into factor analysis. And last time, I said one thing's very loud and clear. Factor analysis is about interactions. Okay? Blocking is different. Later on, we'll see the computation. There are some similarity. But be very careful. Blocking, the motivation behind it is what? Economics. I don't have time, I don't have money, I cannot do it or completely randomize. So I have to do it block by block. Okay? And then because you do it block by block, the randomization only happens within block. Okay? Factor analysis, the most important thing is we want to study interactions. So there are more than one factor. We want to know how those two interactions interact together. And graphically, what is interactions? If I'm only changing the intercept, just jump, that means what? They're parallel. If they're parallel, they're not interactions. There's no interactions. Interactions means what? They're not parallel. So they have two different slopes. Okay? Then could be increase more, increase less, or one increase, one decrease. But as long as they are not parallel, you know there are interactions. Okay? Now, I'm going to show a simple example. And here are, technically speaking, I have 3 exhaust index. 60, 90, 150, and 2 voltage. So totally, I can consider that I have 2, 1 factor for voltage, 1 for E here. And so you can consider that how many treatment I have in reality. Almost like I have 6 treatment, right? I can have E60, let's just say E1, E2, E3. So I can have E1, E2, E3, V1, V2. So I can have E1, E2, E3 with V1, and E1, E2, E3 with V2. So totally, how many treatment I have? If I treat them as, each one of them individually. Here, let me open up this one. There we go. Okay, so look at this 2 different ways, okay? One is I have this and this. And of course, there's one more inside, vertically. So I can treat them as 3 treatment, right? Only E1, E2, E3, agree? And then you can consider there are 3 subway stations with how many degrees of freedom? 3 minus 1, 2, right? But I can also do it this way. I can treat them as this and this. This is almost like blocking, but except they're not blocking, they're just 2 factor. Okay, so I can have high voltage and low voltage. So if I treat them this way, I have, I can, or if you really want, I can turn them vertically. Okay, Control C. Okay, special transpose. And so I will have treatment 1, 127, treatment 2, 220. So agree with me that you can look at this way and this way, right? But can I also have the combo of them and say that, okay, I can treat them as E1, E2, E3 was V1, and E1, E2, E3 was V2. Can I do it this way? Then how many treatment I have? 6, right? So if I treat them as 6 treatment here, if I treat them as 6 treatment here, so total degrees of freedom will be what? 6 minus 1. So it's 5. So think with me, okay? That is the most detailed way to think about the treatment, agree? So if I treat them this way, it's 6 degrees of freedom, okay? But if, so I'm talking about degrees of freedom here, degrees of freedom here, okay? And should be the other way around. Okay, so I can treat them as 6 degrees of freedom, but I can treat them as 3 degrees of freedom. 2 degrees of freedom. 3 minus 1. Okay, that's 2 degrees of freedom this way. Or I can treat them as 2 minus 1 degrees of freedom this way. So, people, here is the questions. The detail was 6 degrees of freedom. Vertically, 3 minus 1, 2 degrees of freedom. Sideways, 2 minus 1 degrees of freedom. Which way is the right way? Which way is the right way? In reality, they all correct, except, okay, this is the main effect from the voltage. So we can consider that this is the different E exhaust, and this is the effect of the voltage. Okay, and whatever the leftover, okay, is equal to 6 total degrees, total detail way of looking at things, minus the main effect, either this way or this way. So I will end up with 3 degrees of freedom left. That 3 degrees of freedom is my interactions, E times B. And how to figure that out? Main effect, how many treatment for E I have? 3, right? So 3 minus 1, give me the 2, right? People see that? That's the old deal. Oh. Okay. 3 minus 1. Right. No, I don't want to put equal signs, then it will equal to 2. Let me just say that equal to number. 3 minus 1. Oh, come on. Okay, treat them as word. Is there a text? Oh, okay, here we go. 3 minus 1. Okay. And then this is voltage is 2 minus 1. Okay? So this is 2 minus 1. And then, can anybody tell me how that interaction can be break down? Of course, I know totally the detailed way. I have 2 observations, 6 treatment, right? Minus the 2, minus 1. I know 3 left to talk about those some square. This, okay, is the tricks. I have the 3 minus 1 interact with a 2 minus 1. Okay? And that will give me the leftover. Okay? So let's do that. Oh, I'm sorry. Here should be 5. It's 6 minus 1. Equal to 5. It's 6 minus 1. Okay? Because I have 6 treatment, 6 minus 1. Okay. So now let's do it manually. So first, people, if I have 2 observation here, Can you figure out the sum of, well, first, the total sum of squares is the variance of this, how many observations I have? 12, right? So can I find the total sum of square? Can you find the total sum of square? Well, one way you can figure that out is what? Just do a variance. Yeah, let me do it here. Right? I just do a variance or standard deviation square. What?
You can't see over here.
Oh, too far? Again? Okay, sorry. Here? Yeah. So what I'm saying is, first let's, we know that I have 12 observations, right? So, here. First thing first. Total 12 observations, so you have 11 degrees of freedom. Agree? And then the main effect, 3 treatment for E, so 2 degrees of freedom. Agree? And I have 2 voltage, 2 minus 1, 1 degrees of freedom. Agree? And then the error term, I said that is totally, if I treat them as 6 treatments, 6 degrees of freedom, 6 minus 1 is 5 degrees of freedom. But this 5 degrees of freedom in detail, 2 degrees of freedom for E, 1 degrees of freedom for V. So 5 minus 2 minus 1 equal to what? 2. Agree? So first thing first, everybody can see that, hey, don't start another conversation over there. Everybody see this 11 degrees of freedom being partitions. Show fingers if you have questions. Detail totally is 5. Agree? Because I have E1 6. So totally is 5. And 11 minus 5, so I know my error term is 6 degrees of freedom. So far so good, right? The main effects is 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1. And whatever left over is 5 minus 2 minus 1 is equal to 2. Or you can consider it this way, is 3 minus 1 times 2 minus 1 equal to 2. Okay? I don't want you to memorize it. I want you to see it. Okay, next, on the variance, okay, I can consider first the totals. What?
So I do not understand the 2 degrees of freedom for EXP interaction.
You don't know where this is coming from?
Yeah.
I just explained this when you're talking. Here, one more time. Totally, the detailed way to talk about this is 6 treatment, right? The most detailed way to talk about it is 6 minus 1 is 5 degrees of freedom. Agree?
Yeah.
So that means that the treatment I can talk about, 5 degrees of freedom. No more than 5. In other words, that I have 6 degrees of freedom left for the error term. End of the story. Now I'm just trying to partition this most detailed way and say this most detailed way can be partitioned into 3 pieces. Looking at downward, downward, downward. How many different subway stations downward? 3, right?
Yeah.
So 3 minus 1. How many degrees of freedom? 2. You see that? And then I said, okay, let's just partition this things the other way. Sideway, sideway. How many different treatment? 2. Therefore, how many degrees of freedom? 2 minus 1, 1. Agree? So now you can think about this is whatever the leftover is my interaction term. So 5 minus 2 minus 1 is 2. There's another way to think about this, is that I don't think about this detailed way. I'm just thinking about it and said that, well, can you tell me where is that interaction degrees of freedom coming from? You can consider this. E is 3 minus 1. V is 2 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 times 2 minus 1 equal to what? 2. So either this way or this way. Yang Ming, you have questions? You raise your hand?
No.
Okay. Okay, so here are those 5 degrees of freedom. So now our sum of our degrees of freedom for our ANOVA table at least should be clear to you now, right? Next, the total variance or total sum of square, or minus this, where is the central station of those 12 observations, equal to variance of this guy times 15. Oop. Oh. Where did I do wrong? Okay, I know. Standard deviation square. Huh?
Isn't how 11?
Huh?
1 cut by 11, not 15.
Yeah, you have 12 observations, not 16 observations.
Oh. Okay. Early sign of Alzheimer. Okay. Who catch me? You did? Yay. Okay. Good job. Okay. So that's the total. Then we can look at it this way. So subway station 1, subway station 2, subway station 3, you can figure out the sum of square of the 3 subway stations. Agree? Okay? And you can figure out the average, and then you can figure out subway station V1, subway station V2. You can have your sum of square that way. Agree? And one way you can do this, okay, as usual, I would like to come up with a cross-check mechanism. I can consider that here are 6 subway stations. Can I figure out the 6 subway station and figure out the sum of square of those 6 subway stations? I can do that, right? Find the average, and then here, see here, if it's 106, 1 is divided by 2 is 53, 1 above 53, 1 below 53, and then you do the square, you'll have that one. And then when you have those sum of square together, okay, those are the real sum of square for the treatment. But remember, right now I already used this much for E. Use this much use this much for V. So whatever the leftover, you can consider as what? Same things. There are two different ways you can think about it. This way is that I have total treatment sum of square, right? And then E took some away. I said, hey, I'm looking at it from top down. V take some of away because I look at sideways. Whatever the leftover is what? The interaction term. Okay? And the other way you can think about it is this, okay? Is once you figure out the total error term, and using the total minus everything in the error term, the error term number changed. So whatever the leftover is your interaction term. Okay, now I want you to spin this in another way to think about it, okay? People, remember when we played with the polynomial, we said that I have the intercept 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, a bunch of 1, okay? And then I said that, now I consider this. I have a x, right? And then I have an x squared. And then I want you to treat the x squared. Okay? I treat this as my x1, and this is my x2. And then so I consider that the polynomial really are just two-dimension extra variable, right? Remember what we did that in polynomial. And of course I can have x3, x4. Okay? So how to look at interactions? You can consider interaction is the following. Okay? Think it through is more important, okay? So I can consider that interactions is like this. I have a dimension, a variable called x1. And then I have a variable called x2. I have an e, I have a v. And then can I have another variable x3? And what is really x3? x3 is not really x3. x3 really is x1, x2 times x2. You guys follow me? When we did a polynomial, I said polynomial is fake. There's no such thing as polynomial. They are just linear regression. Just treat, if I have x3, I said, I have an x cubed. But don't think that they're actually an x cubed. The x cubed is fake. Really, we just treat them as another variable, x3. Now we're just saying that, I have a variable called e. I have a variable I call v. Okay? So this is our two dimensions. So what is my interaction x1 times x2? E times v, right? So e times v, you just treat it as what? Another dimension. You guys follow me? So whenever you treat them as another dimension, okay, the entire world about any complex phenomenon, we just saying that, you have more to talk about, then I'll just add another dimension, Okay? So what is the price you pay for adding another dimension?
Take away some of the
degrees of freedom.
From the error.
Yeah. So sooner or later, can you be very generous? And so every time, here's the part that you're gonna hate your colleagues when you work in the real world. Is this, okay? You give a nice presentation. We're gonna evaluate this, and then at the end, he just raises his hand, or she just raises her hand and says that, I don't get it. What about this? What about that? And then, of course, your boss said, that's very important, very interesting. We should investigate that. And guess what? That add another dimension and take away, I don't know how many treatment is 4. Treatment is 4 minus 1 will be 3 degrees of freedom. So every time when someone says, what about this? What about that? It's extra time, extra money, extra something. So your job is to immediately talk about, sure, we can investigate that, but how much is that going to cost us? And then at the end is, do you think we can solve the world hunger, evaluate everything? Never. So what is really important? Priority, right? So you just say that, hey boss, how much time, how much money you give me? With this much time, this much something, what should we investigate? And remember, whenever you start talking about that, greedy egoism coming in. Okay? So this spreadsheet, really at the end, you still have the same f-test, yardsticks, p-value, everything's just like before. Except I'm just introducing this concept of how to calculate that interaction term. Okay, if you agree with that, the general picture, now we're going back to basic. What I'm going to do is actually try to say that, okay, let's just have two factor. and then 3 factor. If we can get those basic things visualized step by step, then everything we try to evaluate and just add on to those things. So in other words, I'm showing you that this is where we're going, but I'm going to more emphasize on how to build a Lego block. Because if you know how to build a Lego block, you just use the Lego block, piece them together for different stuff. Okay. So here are the Lego blocks we're going to do today. Okay. We're going to do a very simple one. Consider this. I have A effect and B effect. Okay? So now we're going to using this view. People, your last lecture, I talked about when we do stuff, we can use 0 and 1. But for response surface or generally, we want to use -1 and +1. So now consider this, okay? I have an A effect, and an A effect is low and high. So let's just say low is -1, high is +1. So, low is -1, high is +1. Yeah, it's not for you, okay, it's for myself. Okay, B effect. If here is low, high, then B effect should be what? Low, low, high, high. Why? Because if I do it this way, totally, would you agree with me? There are 4 different possible way of treatment. Low, 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 high, low, high. Agree? Agree? So you can consider this. I have 4 let me I think I have my lecture note with me. PowerPoint. Where is the PowerPoint? Here we go. Here. Okay, so I can have A effect, okay? A effect could be low, A effect could be high. So how many treatment for A? 2. So how many subway station for A? 2. Can I look at the B effect and say that I'm going to go this way? I can have the same thing, low and high. Look at the subway station this way. So either look at the world vertically or look at the world sideways. Agree? So now, how many degrees of freedom for main effect A? How many degrees of freedom in ANOVA for main effect A? How many? Come on. 1. Yep. So how many effects for B? 1. Here is the challenging one. Okay? Get extra 10 points for exam 1. No, I'm joking. So how many for interaction A and B?
1.
Why 1? 2 minus 1 times 2 minus 1 equal to 1. That's it, right? So that's why I'm saying that I make this really, really simple right now. 2 minus 1, 2 minus 1, 2 minus 1 times 2 minus 1 is 1. Okay? And then let's say that I have observation here. Okay? And 2 observation for low is 28, 25. No, 3 observation, 28, 25, 27. And I have low, when B is low and here, so I have the high, 3 observation, 31, 30, 29. I have the low but low A and high B, 3 observation and 3 observation. So totally how many degrees of freedom I have is what? 3 times 4 minus 1, 11 again, right? Okay? So now we're just saying that here are 11 degrees of freedom representing in this square dance. Low, high, low, high, low. Okay? And we're going to use them to figure out main effect A, main effect B, and interaction term A and B. And they only use 3 degrees of freedom. So totally, how many degrees of freedom left for my error term? 8, right? 11 minus 3. And right now I'm just saying, since I'm making it up, it's cheap. So you can have your 8 degrees of freedom for error term. But later on, I will always say that, do you really need that many degrees of freedom for your error term? If you don't, let's cut it down to 2 observation rather than 3. Then it will be 8 degrees of freedom minus 3. 5 left for error term. And then guess what I'm going to do at the end? What if we just said that I want to investigate so many things, but I only allow you to have 1 observation per corner. Now your nightmare star is, can you still do it? Then, in other words, error term for your, degrees of freedom for your error terms from a system intelligence point of view, from an investigator economic point of view, good thing or bad things? Bad things, okay? We always try to do something as cheap as possible, as quick as possible. The more observations. So in other words, take you 2 days, run 12 observations to make the conclusion. I can do it in 4 hours with 1 degrees of freedom, 1 observation. And our conclusion pretty much the same things. Then who's better? Who should get a Christmas bonus? The one who can show that intelligence. Okay. So now I have my 3 observation under this conditions. So far so good? Low, high. Here's another thing you need to remember. If low times low is, can you see it? Yeah. So -1 times -1 equal to +1. And the positive, and then +1 times +1 is +1. Okay? So, first thing first, if you sum them up of this, we can call them the sum of the contrast. Okay? This is 0. This is 0. This is 0. Can you see that? All the contrast is 0. And you can consider this actually almost like this picture. People look at this. If I'm using this 6 degrees of freedom minus this 6 degrees of freedom, what I'm showing is I'm using the 6 observation when A is high versus the sixth observation, A is low. Agree? Using the right wall against the negative side is positive against negative. For A is positive high, A is a negative low. Can I do it this way? I'm using the upper ceiling minus the floor. Then what's this contrast show? When B is high versus B is low. So now you're not allowed to answer. I think you already know. Okay, so now I have an A-B interaction term. And it's based on low-low is positive, high-high is positive, but high-low, low-high is negative. What is this interaction term really representing? In this square dance is what? When you're low, I'm low, you're high, I'm high, means what? A and B go hand in hand together, right? So low-low plus high-high minus one low, the other one high, one low. So it's this diagonal minus this diagonal. The negative, negative, positive, positive together means what? A and B work together. And then one high, the other one low is what? You high, I'm low, I'm high, you low. And then we're doing the trade-off. So I can have the AB term this way. Okay, now next things I want you to think about it. Okay, using some product between any two contrasts, you'll find that the sum product of any two contrasts, no matter A times B or A times interaction, B times interactions, they all gonna be 0. So whenever the contrast equal to 0, the sum of the product of the contrast equal to 0, there's a term for this. Okay? And you can Google after the class. This is called orthogonal contrast. And why is it orthogonal contrast? Because it's a square dance. Okay? Google after the class. But orthogonal contrast in your short note is the sum of the contrast equal to 0, the sum product of the contrasts equal to 0. Okay, so far so good. I explained the contrast. And as usual, we should have one intercept row create. Last things, okay? This is kind of convention for 99% of experimental design books. They will call the treatment when A is high, it's called A. When B is high, only B is high, it's called B. It's small letter B. When both A and B are high, it's called A times B. And then when both A and B are low, since I don't have the expressions, some people use 0, 0. But in this class, we use Montgomery's notation. We'll put a parentheses 1. Means this is my baseline low, low. So the notation here is 1 for low, low. A for A is high, B and AB. Okay? Later on, we'll have C effect. Then you will see the same thing. Only A is high. Only B and B is high. Only C is high. And AB, it means A and B high, C is low. AC means AC high, B is low. And when everything's high, will be what? A times B times C. So the notation here is the notation for observation using small letter. Okay? So, everybody with me? Finally, from A column, from A to here should be given in the exam. Agree? Okay? Now we're going to calculate the total. First is the total. Sum of the three was the same low, low, low. So in other words is that I'm summing up the three. So 1 equal to 80 means what? The three observation I have at the low, low, low is 80. And then I sum up the AB is 90. That means that when I sum up the three things is high. The three observation, high, 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 is 90. And of course, somewhere in between is A and B. And then you have this. So, everybody, so far so good? We have those. And now, finally, we'll use, okay, every one of your contrasts times, okay, your A times your B times your AB. That will give you the total times the contrast. Total times the contrast. Okay? And why we're doing that? So now I'm saying that, oh, you know what? What is my A effect going to be evaluated? My A effect really is what? Hey, I'm moving from my low end of the wall to the high end of the wall. Moving from this wall to this wall. And I'm increasing or decreasing. So, am I increasing or decreasing? Hey, I'll go 80, 80, and then 190. I'm going from 80 to 100, 60 to 90. So, without even looking at the Excel, what do you think? A effect is positive or negative? One more time. People, low, low to A. It's moved from 80 to 100. And then here is low with B high to both high, high. It's 60 to 90. So moving from this wall to this wall is either 60 to 90 or 80 to 100. So A effect is positive or negative? Positive. And how much positive? I'm just add them up together. Okay? And then when you add them up together, you have your A effect calculated. Okay? This A effect, and then I'm doing the same thing for the B effect. And then I'm going to do one for the AB interaction. Doing the same thing is AB interaction is what? Moving from together is 80 to 90. But coming in the other way is 60 to 100. So this cross is not perfectly crossed. So it's 166. Now, of course, from the sum, I need to separate them by 2 walls, right? So it's divided by 2. But obviously, I divided by 2, and why I need to times 3. Where is that 3 coming from?
Is that your degrees of freedom?
Huh?
Is that your degrees of freedom?
Degrees of freedom of what? You have how many observations per condition? 3. So 2 is just the contrast, right? Before and after, before and after. So it's divided by 2, right? 3 is the times number of the observation. So if I have, rather than 3 observation, I have 4 observation, should be divided by 2 times 4. You guys follow me? So here is your effect. Okay? Once you have your effect done, okay, now Everybody agree with me that you see 8.33, -5, and 1.66 coming from, right? Right? This wall against that wall. And now, all you need to do is square it and times the number of degrees of freedom to get there. So you get your sum of square. Your sum of square, your sum of square. Okay? And once you have your sum of square divided by 1 degrees of freedom, 1 degrees of freedom, and then of course, the total sum of square is what? You can use your variance to figure that out, but the leftover is your pure error term. Agree? Here. If these three are my main effect A, well, time on slowly. Everybody figure out how to get my main effect A now, right? Everybody know how I get my main effect B now, how I get my main effect interaction AB now, right? Rather than using the regression, I will use the regression later, okay? But this is too simple, so I don't want to do that. And so I have my sum of square. And you know that your total variance minus that 3 effect, that is your leftover for your error term. Agree? And how many degrees of freedom for the error term? 11 minus 3 is 8, right? So far so good. And here I just have a percentage or have a bar chart, pie chart, showing that A effect, B effect, which one chewed up a lot of sum of square? A, right? And can you also have your F statistics done? And then find your p-value. And of course, significant, but interaction is not significant. Okay? So this is your ANOVA table, but this time the ANOVA table is doing it through this contrast way. And this contrast way will be the way that we're going to use for response surface and everything. So now we need to connect this. Oh, before I do anything, okay? If in the exam, okay, I ask you to figure out this ANOVA table, okay? How many different ways you can do it in reality? You can still use your central station, subway station approach, agree? You can turn them into the regression using -1, +1, or 0, 1. And you can do it this way. But no matter which way you do, your total sum of square to be partitioned, your pi to be sliced, this is it. Okay. Don't save. Let me do it in a different way. Okay, so let's do it using the dummy variable way and the effect way. This is the same things we did before. Just okay. Here we go. So let's look at the effect way first, because the effect way looks just like our previous one. Okay, people, 12 observation. So you have one row, one column for your intercept. Agree? And then you'll have 12 observation, high, high, low, 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 high. And you basically said that, okay, I'm doing it in my first block. I'm doing it in my second block. I use different color. I'm doing it in my third block. Every time when you try different block, are you doing the same things? High, high, low, 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 high. And so now you just look at the same things from this approach. Okay? And then you have your 12 observation dictated this way. Can you see that? And then can you have your x transpose x estimated? Right? Copy, paste, intercept, A effect, B effect, AB interactions. Okay, for that 12 observation. So now the matrix should be a 4 by 4. Why? Intercept, A effect, B effect, AB interactions. Next. Okay, what will be the degrees of freedom? Is the first one, 12. And because I'm using a square dance, is what? 4, 4, 4 for A, 4, 4, 4 for B, 4, 4, 4 for AB interaction. So you see, this is gonna be what? 12, 12, 12, a diagonal things. You see that? And so what will be 1 over 12? 0.833. So this is the inverse, x transpose x. Okay? And even though I know that we shouldn't use, matrix computation is very complex, but intuitively you know that's the answer. And why we're using the matrix way, because later on when the world is really messy, this is the way to go. And then, of course, we'll have the x transpose y. And once you have the x transpose y calculated, okay, now you can use them, okay? To figure out that what is your B0, B1, B2, B3. And B0 is, here is your 3 beta, okay? And now, once you have them done, okay, the intercept is not useful for the ANOVA table, but all the effect we need. So the parameter is 8.1. Okay, let me make it a little bigger. Okay, so you can see the resolution. Okay, so see here is the parameter for A effect, B effect, and AB interactions. So your effect actually is 2 times your parameter. Okay, and why is 2 times the parameter? Here is the key. People, I'm talking about moving from my left wall to my right wall. My left wall, what is the code? -1. What's my right wall? +1. What's the distance from -1 to +1? It's 2. So it's from -1 move to 0, 0 to 1. That's why your effect, we just calculated 8.33. The 8.33 is from -1 to +1. So in regression, whatever you get in a regression, effect must times 2. Can you see that? Okay, later on when we start doing polynomial, the world could be even more complex, but the foundation is right here. Can you see this 2 and this 2 are exactly the same things? Okay, so now if B moving from low floor to high, the floor is -1. The high ceiling is +1. Again, from floor to ceiling is from -1 to 0 to 1. So it's 2 level. And then I said that, I'm moving up 2 level, so the parameter is negative 2.5. In other words, B is moving up, gets smaller. Moving up gets smaller. How much small is 2.5 per unit? But how much I move in the experiment? -1 to 0 to +1. So here is 2.5 times 2 is +5. And then finally, what is my interaction term? The interaction means that A combined with B. When A combined with B, okay, the effect is also positive. And the positive effect is 1.66. Okay? So what is this? Is this interaction term, how to explain it here computationally, is saying this. Everybody with me? Pay attention, okay? Eye contact, please. If I only have A effect, it's 8.33. Means what? Here is some magic, formula. When I put A in, just A, nothing else, the effect is 8.33. If nothing else, I only put B in, B is bad news. Drop to 5. Okay? But now I'm saying that, you know what? I'm not just putting A and B in. I can have the combo of A, B together. The A, B together, the effect is positive, 1.66. So in other words, is this. If I have, in the real world, I have A, B together, then the counting here, based on a single unit, just A, I got 8.33. Good news. But then B is a bad player. Whenever he joined a party, we score bad. So I drop -5. However, because B, even though B is a bad news by himself or by herself, but when B play with A together, is that good for the team performance or bad for the team performance? When they act together, it's good news. It's 1.66. So the overall accounting is that B by itself is bad, but B is good when there's a little bit of interactions. So for this simple experiment, you're the CEO. You want to hire B or you're not going to hire B? If increasing is what we want. No, right? Because he chewed up a lot of negative, even though there's a little positive helping A out. So by doing this, I'm saying what? Just having A is good enough. Ignore B. Can you guys see that? B is bad news. But B could be good news when B play with A. Follow me? Okay? And think it through, okay? Because interaction is very, very confusing in the real world. A lot of time people like to talk about interaction here, interaction there, but at the end, they don't know what they're talking about. Okay? Okay, now finally, now I have my effect done, and then I still can calculate my total. I can calculate my error term. But the error term this time, I can do the same thing, just by using prediction. Predictions minus, okay, so I can use my predictions minus this, I get my error term. And then also, I can have my A effect calculated. And remember, high-low, so when you have one high, one low, the A effect, sum this up together, should be always 0. Why? Half of them above A, half A0, half of them on a positive 1, half of them on negative 1. Half of them on positive 1, half of them on negative 1. Half of them on AB positive, half of them on AB negative. So now you can calculate your total model, and this total model can be break them into 3 pieces. Okay, A effect, B effect, AB interaction. The answer will be exactly the same by using the old tricks. Central station, subway station can be used doing that square dance way or using the regression way. Okay? What I'm trying to say to you is that if in the exam, okay, you're doing more than one way and you got different answer, you know you're in trouble. Okay, next. Let's do the dummy way. Oh, I already copied. Did I copy the dummy? Maybe not. Okay, now let's do the dummy way. I did. Oh, by the way, this is really Simon Xiang's terminology. Okay, the central station subway station way is just regular experimental ANOVA way. Just I like to visualize it as central subway station way. Okay, the -1, +1, they call it contrast approach. Okay, and the square dance is the contrast approach. And then when you put that -1, +1 in the regression format, you can say that is the effect of that. And then the dummy variable way, I call it dummy way, is whenever I'm talking about 0, 1, 0, 1, rather than doing -1, +1. Okay? And the jargon is not important. The important is you need to relay the computation to the explanation. So now we're doing the same things. 12 observations, 0, 1, 0, 1, AB interactions, okay? And now still 12 observation, and then you have what? Your X transpose X, and then turn them into your X transpose X matrix. Okay, which one have pure diagonal? The contrast effect way or the dummy variable will have the perfect 12, 12, 12. The contrast way. Look at here. We don't have a nice looking matrix anymore, right? Remember? Our previous one is really beautiful. Just 12, 12, 12. Nothing else. And that's why I like that 12, 12, 12 too. But I want to show you the ugly way, so you know why that way is the most. When I work for an insurance company, 99% of the time I'm only using the square dance, nothing else. Okay, but if someone challenges me, what is this, yada yada, I can show them a different spin. Okay, so X transpose X inverse, and then finally. Okay, you get your term, and then here, directly, you can come up with your transpose everything. Oh, by the way, people see here, when we're using this dummy way, you get your effect directly, 8.33. Why? Because we're moving from 0 to 1. Before, we're moving from -1 to +1. So as -1 to +1, I have 2 steps. I need to times 2. Here, I'm not doing that. See that? Okay, so here I don't need to divide it by 2. Okay, 1 year I did have a bunch of multiple choice questions, but I'm not planning to do that this year. Is I show you all kinds of ANOVA table and output and ask you which analysis will get this kind of outcome. And then you should have that in mind. You know, -1, +1, then you need to times 2. That kind of stuff. Okay? No plan to do that this year. Okay? So now you repeat that, you get your ANOVA table done. Okay? Okay. So far, so good? Now let's do it more. Before I studied grad school, I used to work for United Airlines, okay? And this is 20-some years ago. We still fly 747 cross Pacifics, okay? And sometimes when typhoon hit, we have a lot of plane on the ground, and then we need to reshuffle the cargo and everything. And since cross Pacifics, we have a lot of fuel in the tank. So I need to keep the airplane balanced. You guys know that the airplane, no matter takeoff or landing, you need to maintain a trim angle. So in other words, its head's always a little higher than the tail. The center of mass, or your mean value, should be inside the wing, right? And then during the fly, turbulence, whatever, so you need to make sure that your flight plan is good, yada yada. But during the typhoon season, when there's cargo, I'm shuffling stuff here and there, I need to estimate, recalculate the balance, the trim line for every plane, last minute. And this is the old days, we don't have PC. We rely on mainframe. And then when the mainframe is down, a lot of time last minute computations, if you get it wrong, okay, your passenger and your captain going to complain when they landed at San Francisco, because the airplane is going to be like roller coaster because it's not balanced. But you need to keep the balance while the fuel consumption is going on. So what is important is to figure out that how many cargoes in the front, how many cargo in the middle, how many cargo in the back, to keep it right. Okay. So what I'm trying to say is that when you have more, I did those flight plan or the loading a lot of time in my head. Same things. It's like what I'm doing here. I'm using more than one way to do the computation. I have all the cargo from FedEx, UPS, from U.S. Passenger baggage coming down from the passenger. They're coming down this way. I distribute them into different compartments. But no matter what, the total weight of all the payload should remain the same. Would you agree with me? Your cargo is not going to disappear. So whenever you distribute stuff this way or that way, at the end you should have a cross-check mechanism. Is that compartment 1, compartment 2, compartment 3, when I add them up together, according to my loading plan, according to my weight and balance plan, should equal to whatever cargo gave me, passenger gave me. People agree? And then the next thing is that whenever I'm having my trim line or everything's according to, I have some, I have a via plane through Tokyo to San Francisco. So there are things coming in, there are things going out, or the flights from Hong Kong. So I have something already loaded. So no matter I add or subtract, at the end, the total net should equal to my loading plane, should equal to my final plane, right? So here's my excuse why I ask you to calculate things in different way. It's a double check, cross-checking mechanism, okay? And even, this is the old days when we have the low sheet or manifest, a lot of time in the radio, okay? Sure, you use those jargon, 10-4, you roger that. But why a lot of time I'll read the number, the trim line is 4.2, back to the home office. Why I do that? Double check, right? I read to him 4.2, he read back 4.2. Then we know that we both hear and say 4.2 once. So the likelihood we made a mistake is what? Can be reduced. So same things, when you do any computation, a lot of time you will say that, Simon, this is crazy. Why you want to show us so many different ways? One thing is important is that I can just look at Even now, 30 years later, I can look at the weight and balance, and just one look, I say this is out of balance. Why? Because I have that trim in my head. And why is that so important is that if you made a mistakes, okay, during the turbulence, the aircraft could crash. And in your experiment, say you're doing one for a pharmaceutical company, you got one outlier, and you don't know how to detect that. People could get killed that way. So it's important to know how to cross-check your number. Okay, see you next week.